Yuji Itadori experienced some insane growth as a sorcerer during the final Shinjuku Showdown arc. While Sukuna was busy being seduced by Heart Nipple Man's insane aura, Yuji planted a black flash punch straight in his chest and then proceeded to land 6 more and awaken. Following that, he learned how to target the barrier dividing an incarnated sorcerer's soul from their vessel using his newfound shrine technique. And to round things off, he finally showed off a soul dismantling domain expansion along with his recently acquired reverse curse technique and blood manipulation. Basically, Yuji Itadori is just that guy following the time skip. During the Culling Games arc though, well, let's be real guys, Yuji was just a straight up bum compared to how he is now. And that is why we are now going to send Final Form Yuji with his entire kit back in time and see if he can wipe out every Culling Games colony all on his own. So make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel because it really does help a lot and we are on our way to that 20k sub mark. Anyway, enough waffle, let's get straight into it. We're gonna start things off by chucking Yuji into the most stacked colony in the whole game, which of course is Kashimo's. What, did you think I was being serious or some shit? Hell no, bro. The most stacked colony is obviously Sendai because there's no farmers in Sendai. Now, obviously this colony is strange because it's not as simple as a bunch of 1v1s. It's more of a battle royale where everyone was fighting everyone. So what I'm gonna do is just talk about each fight as a 1v1 and then conclude by seeing how Yuji would do if he was in the same situation as Yuta. How about we start off with the GOAT, Ryu Ishigori. This guy is stated to have durability on par with or even a bit more than Shinjuku, Yuta, and Yuji, which is definitely no laughing matter. He also packs an insanely underrated punch, with explosive close-range attacks that send Yuta flying and even obliterate the Queen of Curses herself. Ryu Ishigori boasts the highest output attack in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. At least it is the highest output when he's able to fully charge it up. But as much as I absolutely love Ryu and would love to glaze him forever because I do think he is legitimately top 10 in the verse, the fact is Granite Blast is not making a dent in Awakened Yuji. Yuta stood directly in the path of a fully charged Granite Blast and didn't even lose his footing. Bro walks off an attack that literally blew the street apart, so best believe Yuji is gonna be doing the same. I mean sure, Granite Blast will do damage and force Yuji to heal, but as a close range fighter, Yuji probably won't even give Ryu a chance to charge it up in the first place. They will fight mainly in hand-to-hand combat, which Yuji is definitely more skilled at, but he also has the advantage of soul-splitting punches and dismantles, and these will just tear Ryu away from his vessel with no trouble at all. It will not be easy, but in a hand-to-hand fight, Yuji will eventually beat him. The only real problem is that Ryu has a domain expansion that almost definitely trumps Yuji's in refinement. Simple domain also probably won't last too long, but it's likely that Ryu actually gets packed up before then, and it's also likely that Yuji can maybe clash long enough to deal 1 or 2 killer blows with a soul-splitting dismantle. This fight is definitely not easy though, but Yuji does win, kind of high diff. Takako Uro is actually the exact opposite of this though. She is a strong Heian Era sorcerer with a sky manipulation technique which is very defensively overpowered. I'll be real with you guys, a strong elbow and strong thin icebreaker is hardly doing anything to Yuji Itadori, especially with his newfound RCT. The problem is that she can use her sky manipulation to bend all of Yuji's physical attacks away and then deliver counter after counter after counter. So this is where Yuji whips out the blood manipulation and uses Supernova the same way that Chozo did against Naoya. All he needs to do is tank some hits and then get his blood all around her, make it explode, and then close the distance while she's off guard to separate her from her vessel. And then he's gonna need to go find some clothes for that vessel once Uro is gone, because for some reason she woke up that morning and decided she can only win her fight if she's fully fucking naked. Now her domain is as feetless as Ryu's, so I'm just gonna say the outcome is the exact same as before. And then of course we have the king of feetless himself, known as Druvlak Dawala. This guy had some statements that proper wanked him up, but Yuta decided to just cut off the narrator's glaze and simply off-screen him. So yeah, feetless bum that will definitely go down to basic kick punch from Yuji if he's getting no-diffed by base Sendai Yuta. The final opponent in Sendai Colony though is a hell of a lot more problematic for Yuji, and in fact I actually think this opponent is honestly one of the toughest fights Yuji could possibly have. Kurarushi, the disaster level cockroach curse that was low-key frying base Yuta. I mean Yuta had cheats for this fight because, you know, strong RCT output deleted him twice, but Yuji does not have that advantage. He can use reverse curse technique to purge any cockroaches that burst from his body, but beyond that he's legit gonna have a hard time time warding off the massive swarm of all-consuming cockroaches. If he can get close to Kurorushi, then actual hand-to-hand should be in Yuji's favor, and his normal cleave should do the trick if he can land it. Now, since Yuji's blood is actually human, but he has the curse wounds, I also theorize that his blood is poisonous to both cursed spirits and humans, but definitely at least cursed spirits, so he has the advantage there too. Low-key, if base Yuta is getting fried by this thing, then it really is no laughing matter, especially since Yuji can't RCT one-shot it. Honestly, it is the hardest fight that he will face in Sendai Colony, and will pretty much need everything in his arsenal to exercise it. When placed in Yuta's position, where it's a free-for-all though, I think Uro then becomes the biggest problem, and this is because Yuji will still be able to have a fair 1v1 with Druv and the cockroach curses, mainly because Ryu and Uro were just too scared to actually fight them. I say Uro is a problem because beating Uro takes a lot of setup and focus to bypass her defenses, which is a luxury that Yuji will not have when getting pounded by Ryu Ishigori at the same time. In all honesty, Yuta only managed it because of Curse Speech. However, Yuji's battle IQ should not be underrated, and he most definitely has the durability, endurance, and stamina to tank whatever these guys have to throw at him until he manages to land a Black Flash and then go nuclear. So yeah, Sendai Colony is legitimately a high-diff battle for pretty much any sorcerer not named Gojo or Sukuna, and that does apply to Yuji too, but he almost definitely does win. Alright then, let's move on to Tokyo Colony number 2 and see if he can solo the opponents of this colony. Actually, it's more like opponent, because the only worthwhile threat is the glorified phone charger known as Hajime Kashimo. I mean, sure, Charles exists, but let's be real here, guys. Bro is getting bashed up by base Hikari, so best believe Yuji is just gonna blitz one-shot him. Kashimo is definitely the main threat due to his insanely potent lightning bolt attacks that can rip straight through a sorcerer's defenses with pinpoint accuracy. What many people tend to forget about Kashimo though is that in order to use his sure hit lightning, there are conditions he must fulfill. Conditions that really don't work too well against a fighter like Yuji, whose soul barrier aimed attacks can prove deadly to an incarnated sorcerer like Kashimo. The farmer must charge up his own cursed energy and then place a positive charge on his opponent by making physical contact with where he wants to hit them. And because base Kashimo scales to jackpot Hikari in stats and hand-to-hand combat, I think it's fair to say that Yuji has the advantage in hand-to-hand skill overall. I mean, Yuji low-key cooked Heian form Sukuna in hand-to-hand, and Kashimo couldn't even land one single hit in his NBA form. Even if Kashimo does manage to place a charge without getting ripped from his vessel, I doubt he'll manage to actually get Yuji's head, meaning that Yuji will likely just be able to heal from the damage. I mean, we have literally seen Yuji heal from injuries that completely shred his guts, and he can do this by recalling the blood around him back to his own body for peak RCT efficiency. Basically, Kashimo can only win by engaging in hand-to-hand, which he straight up loses in against our GOAT Itadori Yuji. And then he'll just get ripped from his vessel by soul-striking dismantles. And also, he will not use his Mythic Beast Amber form at this point, so it's pretty clear-cut in my opinion. But even then, I still think Yuji beats him in that form. But whatever. Yuji Itadori wins mid to high def. I ain't even gonna bother talking about Tokyo Colony number 1 because holy shit, that place was just infested with bum-level aura. We already know how the Heguruma fight would go down, and Reggie is literally just a Megami victim. Hazanoki actually should not be slept on because he low-key is dope as fuck and at least had the balls to 1v1 Kenjaku. But let's be real, Yuji just dodges or tanks the explosions and beats Hazanoki to death. The only actual problem for Yuji in that colony, if they were to even fight, is Takaba, who Yuji just straight up cannot beat, so let's not even go there. And that means we're gonna move straight on to Sakurajima Colony, where he will be forced to take on Cursed Naoya. Just like with Kurorushi, this fight is way harder for Yuji than anyone would be expecting. Maki was outright slower than Naoya once he had charged up and reached Mark 3 or maybe a bit higher. She could only keep up with him and counter him because of precognition, which is something that Yuji doesn't have. Maki also doesn't get any faster after awakening, or at least not by that much. And the other heavy hitters also scale to Maki, so that means Yuji won't be faster than Maki, and by extent won't be faster than a charged up Naoya. With no precognition to help him, this is deadass a high diff fight either way, because Yuji can tank the same attacks that Maki did and heal even faster than her, but he has no way of stopping Naoya when he's ramped up because of the binding vow making him crazy durable. To win, Yuji will need to play it in a similar way to how Kamo did, and try to clog Naoya's thrusters with blood and then try to get the poisonous blood into Naoya's body. The good thing is that Yuji will endure long enough to piss Naoya off and make him use a domain expansion, which Yuji can actually contend with here because it would be Yuji's second time and Naoya's first time. And as we know, Yuji is most definitely more of a prodigy at Jujutsu than Naoya ever could dream to be. Naoya also looks like he maybe can't can't move in his own domain, so I low-key think Yuji pummels him to death with cleave and strong punch. Not gonna lie though, this is Yuji's hardest fight yet, which I legit see going either way, because Cursed Naoya is an absolute beast that Maki needed precog and a Duraneg sword to fucking beat. With all of the major colonies wrapped up, it's now time to see how Awakened Yuji would do against some of the Culling game's fiercest outliers. This includes 10% output Meguna, 16-finger refreshed Meguna, Kenjaku, Urame, and of course the queen herself, Yorozu. Now as for Yuji Itadori versus 10% output Meguna, dear god this fight is not close, and I already know the Sukuna Glazers are gonna cry about it. Yuji with his soul-dividing attacks, RCT, blood manipulation, and pure hand-to-hand combat skill will delete this man from existence. Sukuna's output was so low that even Culling Game's Yuji tanked his attacks. Literally 1 or 2 soul-dividing dismantles and Sukuna is being reduced to that blob of jelly on the floor in no time at all. As for 16-finger Meguna though, that is literally the exact opposite. I mean sure, if Ryu can tank dismantles from that guy, then so can Yuji, but he's getting the exact same Gordon Ramsay style fillet to the face right after because he's not even gonna see it coming. Maybe Sukuna will joke around and take a few hits, but as soon as he realizes Yuji attacks the soul, he's gonna lock in or just get Maharaga to adapt to it. Also, Yuji's domain cannot hope to compete against a full Malevolent Shrine, and he also has no chance against the full power of the Ten Shadows technique. As for Urame, however, well, this one is definitely way closer and a lot more interesting. The thing about Urame is that their ice attacks have such a huge range and are so fast that even an off-guard Maki can get fully subdued by them. Hikari was simply a bad matchup because Hikari can easily sacrifice his limbs in order to instantly escape the ice. But Yuji definitely cannot do that, at least not to the same extent. Urame's ability to maintain distance is so crucial here because Yuji literally needs to be close to win. If he does get up close, then Urame is cooked because they were getting tossed around by Hikari, and that would mean that Yuji can easily rip them from their vessel. But closing that distance in the first place is so unbelievably hard, especially considering that they're probably equal in speed. What with the heavy hitters being more or less relative and Urame scaling to Hikari, who is a heavy hitter. This is deadass a 50-50 in my opinion. I mean, it fully depends on Yuji's ability to outsmart Urame and close that distance. If he manages it, then yeah, it's a wrap. I guess he does also have the advantage in that maybe he can use Contact Cleave to instantly shatter any ice he gets trapped in. So now that I think about it, Yuji might actually have the upper hand, but it would be a hella high diff fight anyway. And next up we have Kenjaku, and I'll be honest, we all know this fight is highly controversial, but shut up and listen. Sorry, I don't mean it like that. Just, I love you guys. Like, subscribe, you know, all of that shit. Anyway, Yuji vs Kenjaku, let's go. Okay, so Kenjaku in a fair 1v1 with no prep will probably struggle against Yuji a fair bit. But with the defenses that he set up in the late Gosho Colony, I think he definitely has a massive advantage. And even without that, the sheer mass of curses that he has to throw at Yuji is so much that it will literally be too much for Yuji to deal with at one time. Even if he can literally just one-bang all of them, he will still have to rinse through thousands upon thousands of them until he is exhausted enough to lose to Kenjaku's gravity or domain expansion. And Yuji's domain literally has zero chance against Kenjaku's, even if it is refined more than what we've seen before. I really don't think there is an argument to be made for Yuji winning this, I'm not gonna lie, especially when Kenjaku can just pull out the trump card like Uzumaki. And finally, there is our glorious Queen Yorozu, who is arguably the strongest character in the Culling games bar Sukuna. She is deadass top 5 in the verse with a broken construction technique, immense cursed energy, and some insane physical stats that let her keep up with and legitimately damage 16-finger Meguna. Her insect armor also massively buffs her physicals, and she can block and attack simultaneously with liquid metal. Perfect Sphere is also undoubtedly the strongest attack in the entire verse, matched only by Yuki's Black Hole. But to be effective against Yuji, she will need to make it the sure hit of her domain, because outside of the domain it is just hella slow. And that domain is one of a Heian era sorcerer. It is no fodder disaster curse domain. This shit is the real deal, and with Yuji's lack of experience, I really don't see him beating that. Yorozu in bug armor though also deadass outstats Yuji Itadori. Her only weaknesses are no reverse curse technique and also being an incarnated sorcerer that can be stripped away from Sumaki. Let's be real, with that insect armor to deal with, Yuji is not landing those contact soul dividing cleaves at all. No chance. Or rather soul dividing dismantles. Whatever. So yeah, this is low-key a mid-diff fight for Yorozu that Yuji can only win with his main character powers that transcend scaling. And honestly, I'm completely fine with that, alright? I don't take scaling too seriously anyway. These opponents are just hella strong though, so the fact that Yuji even poses a threat to them or challenges them at all is hella impressive. Overall, Yuji does solo the Culling games when it comes to the major colonies like Sendai, Tokyo, and Sakurajima. But when it comes to those outlier players like Sukuna, Yorozu, Urame, and Kenjaku, everything everything becomes much harder. Although this does apply to pretty much anybody who isn't gojo. Anyway, that does it for today's video. Please don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you enjoyed, because it does genuinely help the channel a lot. Feel free to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in a bit.